Matthew 18 might be one of the scriptures that is the most used but misunderstood when it comes to interrelational things, particularly within church. What do you have to say? How do people utilize it in the wrong way?
Matthew 18 is Jesus' way to maintain peace in the body. However, many times we use it by weaponizing it. What we want to happen is we use it to silence people. Like, oh, you can't discuss that. You have to come and talk to me alone. Or they can use it in a way where you're going one-on-one with a person. It's hard for a junior associate to go and talk to a senior executive one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be weaponized to keep people silent, and used out of context.
So when you look at and read, how can we utilize it in the right way? Because I know that, people have issues, they have challenges, they're anxious, things are not going the way that they want to. They want a real solution to it. The problem is they don't know how to. Are there some clues from Matthew 18? Are there some clues from other theories that you might have studied, that you coach people through? How can we utilize Matthew 18 and other things to bring about change or to solve problems within our churches or organizations or wherever we might be leading?
Well, to get a real understanding of it, let's start with the text.
Mm-hmm.
See, although this is a leadership principle,
mm-hmm.
it is biblical. This is where it started. It's biblical, and now science has caught up to the biblical principle that is found in Matthew 18. So it doesn't matter what environment you're in,
mm-hmm.
this principle is valuable. Matthew 18, starting with verse 15, says, "Moreover, if your brother sins against you," and I'm reading from the New King James Version, "if your brother sins against you," I think other versions say offends you, "go and tell him his fault between you and him alone." That's a very powerful method of keeping the peace and keeping harmony.
So it's a one-on-one. That's where it starts. It starts one person to another person.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's talk to me, not about me. Okay. The preposition there is very powerful. Talk to me, not about me. Between him, you and him alone. If he hears you, you have gained your brother. Gaining your brother is the goal of this principle, or let's call it reconciliation. I think it's beautiful when two people can have a disagreement, talk it out, just them in a room, whatever, and come to an agreement, and it's done. But, some people have the tendency to bring up old stuff. Bringing up old stuff is not healthy here. That violates the principle.
So this isn't a time to bring up what happened a year ago or last week or 5 weeks ago. Deal with it one issue at a time.
Yeah, that's what some professionals refer to as immediacy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay, because if I offended you 3 years ago,
and you're just talking to me about it now.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was happening in the interim?
And perhaps there's a place to talk about what happened years ago. But the approach is, if you're dealing with one issue, deal with that one issue
mm-hmm.
and handle it straight on. So go to them one-on-one.
Don't pile on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you pile on, it's overwhelming, So one issue at a time, and do it as soon as practical. Now, there are times when someone will offend me, or vice versa, whatever. You offend someone. I know for me, I'm like, wait a minute. what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
Should I be offended?
Mm-hmm.
And you might leave the situation, and then you think about it and say, oh no, I gotta confront this. So sometimes that happens, and you have an answer for that. Well, why are you just bringing this up now? Well, I wasn't certain how I felt about it, but then as I thought about it some more, this is the conclusion I came to. So it's you and him alone. And that's really what I want. I want to talk about how science has caught up to that.
Mm-hmm.
So in Bowen's theory, he talks about triangles. What Jesus here is saying, stay in a dyad until you need to go to the next phase.
So it's two people, a dyad being two people,
Mm-hmm.
and a triangle, of course, many of us know that's 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
So start off with a dyad, you and him directly, you and her, or whomever it might be,
Right.
Together. Okay.
So if you don't do this, you create triangles. Whenever someone offends you, they're disrupting what social science calls the homeostasis of the relationship, of the emotional unit. And homeostasis is what just keeps everybody together. This is how we do things around here.
So tell me about homeostasis again.
Yeah. So homeostasis is like in the body, your heart rate, and your blood system. If you're wounded, the blood reacts, and I'm not a scientist, but you got white blood cells attacking the intrusion. That's sort of a disruption, and so it has to respond to whatever disruption there is. So in an emotional unit, what makes things so difficult to change is that status quo. This is the way we do things, and once it's disrupted by an offense, now the homeostasis is out of balance. How people respond to that, what they want to do is they want that to stop. They want that tension to stop. And there is what's known as the amygdala hijack. Yeah, I like referring to this because I learned about the amygdala in Psych 101 years ago, and it's the fight or flight response.
So when I see the other day, last night I went out for a walk, and in this area of Southern California, there's coyotes. When I walked out on the path, it was nighttime, it was dark, and I all of a sudden see these 2 coyotes. I immediately know they're not dogs, and I'm like, okay, am I going to go back home? Am I going to go? Like, what do I need to do to protect myself or whatnot? They turned out to not be a problem. But what you're saying is that my amygdala was activated at that point, maybe to a lower degree, to either run back home or to find out a way to defend myself. And that's what's at play here with this amygdala hijack. I almost couldn't get that out. The amygdala hijack. Tell me how that works for us or against us when it comes to systems theory, Bowen systems theory.
Okay, so let's say you're in a meeting and somebody gets personal, like we used to do when we was kids. Your mama so fat, whatever,
Yeah.
and you trigger. Somebody says something that triggers you. Automatically, your fight or flight comes into play. And you want to avoid reacting. But if you don't avoid it, you're going to go into the amygdala hijack. You're going to react in a way where you're not using the prefrontal cortex or the headquarters of your brain, the reasoning part of it. You're basically right now, you're just trying to survive or stop the tension or the anxiety. And people stop the anxiety in several ways. they can escalate, or some people want to fight. That can't happen if we're really going to be processing Matthew 18 in the proper way.
So how do people weaponize Matthew 18? You talked about triggers, and today in society, you hear the word trigger all the time. That triggered me. This triggered me. Whatever the case may be, there are these things that you have, these habits or these ingrained responses. The amygdala fires, and maybe it fires to the point to where you're running away, not addressing it, or you're fighting and you're trying to pummel someone that maybe requires a different response that is healthier. But how do people kind of weaponize Matthew 18, a core teaching for those that are in a Christian context, and particularly for those that are, say, pastors or leaders or members together? How do people weaponize it, and how can we use it better? And what is Jesus really trying to teach us through this? And how does Bowen's theory help us guide us through that whole process?
Well, Jesus is trying to prevent triangles, because triangles can be pervasive and very damaging to the community. So if you and I have an issue, talk to you instead of about you, right? So if I go to a third person and talk about you, now what I've done is now I brought someone else into our mess. They don't belong there. And however, it has a bonding effect. People will, it's like a secret. Listen, don't tell anybody, but what happened between me and Barone is XYZ. And now I have recruited an ally against you. Now they're looking at you funny. And usually people don't keep the secret. Although secrets and gossip bonds people together, it's an unhealthy bond. And they go tell some other people, and they create another triangle. And then those folks tell other people. And so you got triangles all over the place, and it has poisoned the community. It's very toxic. And Jesus is trying to prevent that by talk to me, not about me.
So it seems like sometimes people, what it is that they want to do is they want to build these armies or coalitions on one side or the other side of an issue. And there are all these different triangles. I can imagine it in my mind now, all these triangles that are walking around an organization that are talking about something or about someone and not talking to them. Why do you think it is that we don't actually have the courage to talk to one another? What's behind that? Why would we prefer to have a non-functioning and toxic triangle as opposed to a productive, functioning one that is not about coalition building or division, but is about bringing about healing and reconciliation?
Well, it's human nature. We're afraid to confront. Confronting someone is one of the difficult things. But if we're going to be great leaders, if we're going to take our leadership to the next level, we have to do difficult things. If I confront someone who may be an employee, we know the danger of what happens. Once we talk, once I confront the person B, they're going to go and tell their version of the story and just poison the whole environment. So we're afraid of that happening. But if we use the process properly, that all of that can be avoided. And in addition to that, the community has to understand that this is how we operate. You can't just throw Matthew 18 out there. This is the way we're going to do things from now on. People don't know what that means. If they don't know how it works and how it's supposed to work, they're going to revert back to their homeostasis, which means talk about someone instead of to someone.
Do you think that in environments, whether it's work environments or church environments, wherever there are people that are gathered together, do you think that we just have never learned how to have healthy conversations that are uncomfortable? And we have these overdeveloped muscles with toxic dysfunctional methods that we perhaps learn from our families, our birth families, or other places of that nature, and we bring it to our organizations, that same way of functioning. uh do you think that that's part of what's happening?
Absolutely. I mean, you said it. You said it exactly right. We bring our initial family drama into whatever organization we're in. So imagine the diversity of drama. Let's say you're in a small company. I don't know. Let's say there's 25 people that work there. You got 25 different trails of baggage that they're bringing with them. And unless you've learned how to manage that, and that's what makes it so hard to lead. You got to deal with all of this drama that people are bringing to the table. And when you bring a proposal, everyone is thinking about, how does this affect me? Me. And so there's the challenge in teaching this process to your organization. And sometimes if a person doesn't want to operate under these rules, then maybe this isn't the place for them.
So we've talked a little bit about dysfunctional processes, perhaps some of the genesis of it, maybe, how we were raised, how people in our families dealt with problems or issues or different things of that nature. We have the courage to go and talk to somebody. We do the dyad, the two one-on-one. I'm going one-on-one. I'm saying I have an issue. What if that doesn't go well? Is there something else that we can turn to? The scripture seems to walk through a system, a whole process of saying, hey, you have the courage to go and talk one-on-one. It doesn't go well. What's the next step?
Right. So the first step is one-on-one, verse 15. Mm-hmm. Then verse 16 tells us exactly what to do. But if he will not hear, take with you one or two more, that by the mouth of two or three witnesses every word may be established. So now what Jesus is describing here is a healthy triangle. Mm-hmm. You don't bring anyone else in until you've done step one. And when someone, like if I came to you to talk about a third person, your response to me should be empathetic at first. Man, I'm sorry that happened. Have you talked to them?
So that should be my first question, is to see if you've taken step one to go one-on-one. And if I say, no, I haven't, then I send that person to say, hey, look, go and have that conversation with them.
Exactly. And what that does is that establishes the boundary of the behavior that is acceptable in this organization.
Okay, so what if I've gone, I spoke to them one-on-one, and I'm saying, Gary, you're my brother, you're my friend. I know you're on my team. I'm coming to tell you, come with me so we can go tell him that he or she is wrong and that they need to change. Is that the way that it's supposed to work? I'm building my team.
You're right. That's recruiting an ally, and that's not fair. So the person that you pull in, according to verse 16, has to come with a clear mind. They have to be open. They can't be biased at all, because sometimes you'll hear the issue between the two and find out that person A was wrong. So you have to be able to come with an open and clear, non-biased thinking.
So for a person that's listening to this, how do they go about feeling comfortable to say to someone, I'm having an issue with person A over here. I spoke to them. I don't want you to be necessarily on my team, but I really want to resolve this. I want you to be neutral in this particular case, but I need someone else to go with me. How does a person go about finding that neutral individual? And just for the sake of kind of building this out a bit, let's say they don't want to go to their pastor or to their supervisor or whomever might be the person that's over them. How do they go about finding that kind of neutral person?
Okay, great question. What I'm discovering is that in every organization, there are roles that naturally occur. And everyone knows who the person is that's going to be non-biased. If you've been practicing this for a while, I mean, there might be choice number one and choice number two. I had a deacon once who, I asked him one day, do you still have your first dollar you ever earned? And he said, yes. So he's the guy that he's going to hold on to his money. And as we were having this discussion, he was telling me that when he was in the military on payday, all the other soldiers would say, all right, we're about to go out. Here, you hold my money while I go out so that, I don't spend it all on payday. Everybody knew his role. He became that person. And that will happen in any organization. I need someone who's going to be fair, who's going to be non-biased. And not only that, if I'm person A and you're person B, you're confident as well in the choice. That way, okay, nobody's taking sides. But once I feel like your person is taking sides, then the issue is, it's not even a healthy situation.
I think that this conversation is going to help so many people and so many leaders because there's a lot of anxiety. This is why I really appreciate what it is that you're doing with coaching, with leading, with your experience of over 30 years of leading organizations. All of those things are really key because it's hard to get to that point where people want to resolve conflicts in a healthy way because people are anxious. I once heard something that people aren't afraid of change. They're afraid of loss. Mm-hmm. Because if I came to you and I said, hey, I'm going to change your salary. I'm going to pay you 100% more than what you're paying right now. If I was paying you $90,000, I'm going to pay you $180,000. That's a change. People are not afraid. They're excited about that. They call their friends about it. But if I came and I said, I'm going to cut your salary in half and you were at $90,000 and now you're going to be at $40,000 or $30,000 a year, you would be up in arms about that because of what you're losing. People are afraid of loss, not always of change if it's something that's a benefit. I know there are a couple of other parts to this whole process. You find somebody that's neutral, somebody that's going to be not necessarily take sides, that listens well, that's non-biased, a person that you could take your savings to and say, I'm going overseas for some months, hold on to my money. Sometimes that doesn't go well and a conflict and a challenge still persists. What do you do after that? After that step, are there a couple of other things that we can do to kind of help heal conflict and move forward?
Sure. Let's go to the text. So verse 15 talks about the dyad. Verse 16 talks about the triangle, healthy triangle.
Healthy triangle. Mm-hmm.
And verse 17 plays out the scenario you just asked about. And if he refuses to hear them, the healthy triangle is rejected, right here in verse 17. Tell it to the church. So that's when it's time to make it public. And so the fear of the initial confrontation is that it will escalate to this. But also, you have done what you're supposed to do. You follow the process. And if the community, the organization understands that this is our process, people will back the system. So this is the system we set up. It worked. Person didn't hear the one-on-one. They didn't hear the healthy triangle. Now it's here for everyone. And that's the point where you find out maybe this isn't the place for that person.
Okay, so I could hear somebody maybe in the comments or has gone through a challenge or something difficult. Is this third step about shaming a person, about saying, we went to them and they didn't respond to the level with the level of contrition or whatever the case is. They didn't recant the statement or whatnot. Is this about shaming, or is this still coming from a place of loving them and trying to find a path forward that can be helpful for the entire organization? What's this third step about?
Well, you bring a good point. Shaming would be weaponizing the system, trying to get someone to do what you want, regardless if it's the right thing or not. But this system is about gaining your brother. This system is about keeping us together so that we can do what the organization's mission. And shaming has no place in that. So it's not about that. But I think if a person doesn't see their part in the tension, then ultimately they're shaming themselves.
Does this, and I could see so many different areas where this plays out, whether it's a conflict on sports teams between the player and the coach, or the player and upper management in a year where there's a contract, or even husbands and wives, or children and parents, or leader as a pastor and a church member, or boards that are trying to make decisions about, maybe compensation, or making a decision about a vice president, and things are in heavy tension. If we reach that point where coming to the group is about saying, hey, look, let's look at this objectively. Let's look at this and try to find a way that honors all the parties that are involved and moves everything forward. When it goes well, tell me about a time where maybe you've seen this go well, where you've seen the one-on-one, the dyad go well, maybe the healthy triangle go well, maybe the healthy group conversation. Have you seen examples where it's gone really well and it's brought about a healing and a healthy culture?
Oh, absolutely. It's exciting. For me, I love it when two people have a disagreement and are able to sit down and work it out. But it's sad when it happens the other way. People's lives are affected. People lose jobs, because they are not able to hear where they're violating the mission of the organization. There was a viral moment in Philadelphia sports. I'm a Sixers fan, and so Tyrese Maxey and 𝐉𝐨𝐻𝐿 were expressing themselves during a timeout, and it seemed to be very hot. Every member of the team was quiet. You could see nobody was getting in the middle of it. They just let them do their thing. And when Maxey was asked about it later, he was like, well, what are y'all talking about? Like, what was this fight about? He said, I don't understand what you mean. Oh, nah, we just both want to win. And we were just talking about how we were going to defend. It was against Cleveland Cavaliers and Donovan Mitchell. He said, no, look, we're not going to switch off on that. You're going to, and so they were just expressing themselves. And, Maxey said, that's my little brother. What are you talking about? So that one-on-one, they dealt with it. No other member of the team got involved, and they didn't hold each other back or anything. They let them work it out.
I love that. I want to ask about one more scenario within this model, because I think it's really key. That there's a fourth level to this. A person might not want to take accountability at all. They don't want to see how maybe their behavior or comments or whatever it is that they've done has brought harm to a person and perhaps an organization and whatnot. They don't want to take any accountability for what has happened. When that takes place within, the church context or even the workplace, what is it that, what's the demand of leaders, and what is it that we need to do at that point in order to maintain healthy functioning?
I think when a person communicates that they can't handle the protocol, the principles, the steps, they're demonstrating that they probably don't belong here. It's they don't want to be here. They don't want to work with the system. Now, there's a healthy way to process it. That's why we have Matthew 8:18. But whenever a person doesn't get what they want, of course, they accuse the system of turning on them. And they'll go to Facebook and start posting, oh, I wasn't treated right. But yet other people who were there and who saw that it went through the process will say, no, this is what we did. We did it right. And I'm sorry that it worked out the way it did for you.
Dr. Banks, 30 years of leadership experience, 30 years of seeing many things. You've seen this go many different directions. Try to handle it in the one-on-one space, and then all throughout there, you do coaching and whatnot. Do you help leaders, pastors, and others that might find themselves in a space and they're saying, I don't quite know how to navigate through these particular waters? Tell me a little bit about what you bring to the table as a coach utilizing this method. And I know you mentioned Bowen a bit earlier, some of the principles there. I'll give you the last word to talk about what it is that you bring to the table as far as coaching and leadership and whatnot is concerned.
Well, I'm preparing myself as an expert through Bowen's theory, systems theory. I've added also neuroscience of leadership. That's where that whole amygdala hijack comes in, and teaching people how to manage that situation. And I bring in my 30 plus years of working in the laboratory of human behavior, which is the church. I've seen so many scenarios in that context that apply to other contexts. So it doesn't matter if you're in business, doesn't matter if you're in education, it doesn't matter if you're on a sports team. These principles that I teach will help you navigate all of this. And so you can check out my website, boldachievement.com, and hopefully like and subscribe our YouTube channels, and let's see what God does.
I love it. Dr. Banks, thank you so much. I think this conversation and conversations like it certainly will help a lot of leaders and a lot of people achieve high and more favorable results, whether it's through conflict, other challenges, and have bold achievements in